Vice News did a segment here talking about the issue of whether or not Trump has the ability to pardon himself.
The story of President Trump's final weeks in office actually starts right here, at the Watergate Hotel in the summer of 1972, with a bungled break-in at Democratic Party headquarters. The scandal that followed was wild enough to make Richard Nixon both the first American president to resign in disgrace and the first to rely on his successor, Gerald Ford, to protect him from criminal charges with a presidential pardon.
It is common knowledge that serious allegations and accusations hang like a sword over our former president's head.
Well, Trump's potential legal exposure is probably worse than Nixon's ever was. Obstruction of justice, bribery, campaign finance violations, all at least theoretically possible, and Trump knows it.
The investigations never stopped. They went on for 4 years.
The thing is, scoring a presidential pardon isn't quite as easy as Nixon made it look. Trump's basically got 3 ways to grab that golden ticket, and each of them has problems. First, the full Trump. It's the simplest. The president can just pardon himself. It doesn't matter that he hasn't been charged with a crime. The president's pardon power extends even to future charges that haven't been filed yet. Trump says he has the power to do it, but constitutional experts aren't so sure. Neither is his own lawyer.
Do you and the president's attorneys believe the president has the power to pardon himself?
He's not, but he probably does.
Back in 1974, Nixon's Department of Justice said, nope, that probably wouldn't stand up in court, on the basic principle that no one can be a judge in their own case. Which brings us to option 2, full Nixon. Trump could copy Nixon's style, resign before his term ends, and then let President Mike Pence do the deed. That would stand up in court, but it runs into another colossal problem, Trump's ego. Trump's already obsessed with pretending the 2020 election was somehow stolen from him. If he steps down early, he'd have to go around explaining why he didn't even finish the one term he had. And that brings us to option 3, the switcheroo. Back in 1974, when the DOJ was looking into a potential Nixon pardon, one lawyer suggested a sneaky way he could do it without fully resigning, the 25th Amendment. It's supposed to let an incapacitated president step down briefly so the vice president can do the job. So Trump could invoke the 25th Amendment, stop being president for, like, 10 minutes, get Pence to sign his pardon, and then snap back into the presidency. Switcheroo. But here's the thing. It's totally skeevy. Would Pence do it? Pence has mastered the art of beaming loyally at Trump while standing far enough away to avoid getting splashed with the worst of Trump's mud. But those approving eyes are also fixed on his own future run for the presidency. The switcheroo would probably work for Trump. But let's be honest, it doesn't scream, I'm Mike Pence, and I have integrity. The future campaign ads would write themselves. And none of Trump's options offer what he himself might call total exoneration. First of all, pardoning himself or his kids implies they did something wrong in the first place.
Typically, if someone is being given a pardon, it suggests they may have committed a crime. That's not something I would want to have associated with my family.
Even the fact that we're having this conversation is absolutely insane. Because I would submit to you that if we're really talking about a president being able to pardon himself, then that would be, you're more than just a president at that point. You're like an emperor or a dictator or a king. You know, like, okay, you can quite literally plan to commit a federal crime and then just pardon yourself. And be like, yeah, I have this ability. Duh. So then rules literally don't apply to you. And that kind of flies in the face of the whole notion of a civilized society where we're supposed to have justice be blind, everybody's equal in the eyes of the law. So, I mean, listen, I would hope that any court would slap down a self-pardon, even if you try to use the loopholes like they're discussing there. But ultimately, listen, it might be a moot point. It might be a moot point. Because, again, the cases that have the best chance of working against Trump are coming out of New York. So they're state crimes. And so the president doesn't have the authority or the ability to pardon on state crimes, even in theory. So there's no argument that a president could pardon state crimes, only federal crimes. So if he were to go down, that's how he'd go down anyway, and there's no recourse. So really this whole conversation might be moot because they're talking more about federal crimes, and if they get him on anything, it would be state crimes, not federal crimes. But it really is crazy that we're having this conversation because that is some real, like, ruthless criminal gangster thug shit. Even to talk about pardoning yourself and your family and those closest to you, that really I would feel comfortable taking us out of the category of, like, constitutional republic and representative democracy if we do something like that. Because that really is sort of codifying a strain of authoritarianism that perhaps needs a new name.